All right, what's up, everyone? This is Sam, or Wakeman VGC, and I'm joined today by Pandawannabe, our GLDL Season 2 Qwilfish Division champion. How you doing, Panda?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Um, just stoked about how the season's gone and all that, and excited that it's coming to a close. But yeah, so we're just gonna jump right into it. I've got your team pulled up on my OBS here, the team you ended up with. Um,
Uh,
So I guess we'll just jump into the questions. The first question I've got for you is how did you feel about your initial draft? Like, did you think it was good or bad or mid or what were some things that you felt you wanted to change about it?
um, I thought, well, my initial draft, it wasn't the team I exactly wanted. Like, I knew I wanted Suicune plus like Orlando,
Hmm.
but like a lot of my like mid-tier picks were sniped. Like, I think I got sniped like six times at least
Whoa.
during the actual draft. So I got hit quite hard. But one I ended up working pretty well, even though like I wasn't like initially happy because snipes are snipes. But I think this team is probably better than the original team I wanted.
Yeah,
Um,
I would probably agree. I remember I don't remember where we put you on preseason PRs. I think it was like higher end of the middle of the pack. Because I think
yeah, something like that.
Wade and I didn't like the lack of spread damage, but other than that, we thought it was pretty good. Um, so why
Yeah.
don't you walk us through? So you dropped, just so everybody is on the same page here, you dropped Bouffalant for Togepi. You dropped Aromatisse for Stoutland, and then for your
hmm
playoffs trade, you dropped. Well, you know what? Let's talk about the playoff trades separately. What were you
Sounds
thinking
good.
when you made those first two?
First two trades. So, my week one, I did bring my Romantis and Buffalon as my trick mode, which it did okay, but it was something that didn't really work out well. With like for example, like I have Blaziken and Mons that don't really appreciate Trick Room a whole lot.
Hmm.
And I figured, well, I don't really need a Trick Room. I can play around it because I have my bulky pivot Mons and Mons I can take hits. I can even get rid of Trick Room with Ton or Roar and Suicune and stuff. So I thought I didn't really need it. Just kind of play fast and bulky. So Aromatisse wasn't really doing much for my team besides the very weak Tricker mode. So I thought Togepi was nice. I picked it right away once it was dropped. And I know I slipped R2 from it, so it was bad. But you gotta do what you gotta do. And Togepi was it was a decent trade. It's not the best trade tip ever, but gave me redirection and made the opponents have to prep for it. You got to prep for follow me. So I thought it was a pretty good trade. And the Buffalo and the Stoutland, or piece of Stoutland, I think Stoutland is just a better normal type. It gave me Intimidate and Scrappy, which are both good abilities. And it didn't show a whole lot of usage till like my later weeks. But yeah, it was a pretty good support one, and even offensively versus my week 10 opponent, my ran choice band. So they were pretty good trades, I felt.
Yeah, yeah. I think I liked your trades a lot. I felt like, yeah, like you said, like you didn't bring the Togepi and Stoutland a whole lot. I'm showing 5 games for Stoutland and 3 games for Togepi, but
Yep.
I mean, in those 5 games, Stoutland went 7-5, so it definitely made an impact.
Yep.
So I guess a follow up question to that would be, throughout the season, like obviously you've got some really strong pieces here. Were there any Mons that overperformed what you think they would do? And I think I know your answer, but I have to ask it anyway.
Yeah. Overperformed. My early season was MVP was definitely Zoroark.
Hmm.
Um, that mon, well, yeah, that mon was really good for me in the beginning. The amount of stuff I could do with inner focus and disguise for King's Majesty meant they had to be afraid to fake it out or hit them on, and it ended up winning me a few games, like versus Flamingo. I think that was a pretty crucial one. And even my week one, it showed like the best showing there. I disguised it as like a Blaziken, and it was immune to like
Yeah,
expanded force.
that was against Krabby, right? I think I remember that one.
Yeah, yeah. So it proved its worth there. But I haven't really brought it besides my early season, but a mon that performed well overall. Besides that was Togedemaru.
Hmm.
It was kind of the glue of the team. Like it was my only fake out mon, but it just paired really nice with the Suicune, solid steel electric type, and ended up getting it going 2020
Yeah,
for its
I'm
record. So
I'm it was really interesting for me to see that 2020 because normally when Mons get that many kills over a season, they tend to not die as often because like, you'll see stuff like well, even like, your Lando 21 and 6 or Serena
yeah,
12 and 4, like those are more numbers you'd expect from something that's getting that many kills, but do you think the Togedemaru it was more so that I mean, obviously, right? Like it's got a decent. What's its attack stat again? It's high enough, right?
it's 98, so it's not
Okay,
bad.
okay, and it's got like Iron Head and Zing Zap and all that. Um,
Yeah, so that's a pretty good stab. Um,
yeah, and so do you think it was just like, I mean, were you playing it in a way that like you never really cared if it died?
um,
Like kind of as like a
sometimes.
sack slash pivot type of role.
Yeah, kind of like pivot.
Okay.
If I didn't need fake out anymore, I would sack it. If I was using it for like nuzzle spam, that's all I needed for it, then I would sack it.
Hmm.
But there are times where I could keep it alive, spam spiky shield, get flinches, because this is a very hacksy mon. It helps me a lot in with just flinching an opponent or sassing it because it's kind of annoying mon.
Yeah, for sure. I
And the
remember.
reason,
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I remember quite a few games watching you paraflinch people with just Togedemaru, and it was like, man,
yeah,
that's crazy.
really annoying mon. I feel bad, but that's kind of what it does.
Yeah, for sure. And I
But
mean, gotta prep for it too.
yeah, but for like you were saying earlier about the Lando, how like it had similar amount of kills, but not as many deaths. It's because like I wasn't bringing Lando every week. I think every week I brought Tokenomaru, and almost every like round I brought it in. So that's why it was dying a lot, and or you're picking up a lot of kills. So I
Right.
ended up going 2020. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because a mon like Lando, you're gonna bring it, and it's gonna do well in the good matchups, and you're probably just not even bringing it to the bad matchups. So yeah, that makes sense.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
So then I guess this is a similar question, but kind of different. So instead of like what was a mon that overperformed what you expected, what just in general would you say was the MVP of your team this season?
Um, Suicune.
Yeah, that's what I
Um,
thought.
I also brought it every week, and there was only some times where I brought some fun sets. Like I think the only time I brought fun sets were AV versus Hollow, and I brought a Scarf Squeakin versus Flamingo. But besides that, I brought the same like bulky citrus barrel tailwind set every single time, and that's all you really need, honestly. Tailwind Scald, some sort of protect, and it just did really well. Um, I think it was probably the best value for the B tier,
Hmm.
and yeah, that's my first pick for a reason.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was one of those borderline mons that the mod team debated a lot on. I think we were pretty split.
Yeah,
I think we actually ended up voting 3-2 in favor of keeping it, but if I'm remembering right, we voted on a lot of stuff this season, but um,
yeah.
I probably wouldn't put it tier two again if that means anything. But
Oh yeah, that's
yeah,
probably a good idea.
I mean, I just watched like I didn't watch every single one of your games, but I watched a good majority of them, and I just remember so many times it would just like obviously its offensive output is like decent but not great, but
Mhm.
just because it sits there for so many turns it's like it doesn't really matter if you're three hit KOing things because you're gonna live three turns probably, and so I remember just watching people either wouldn't have a good check for it or you would check their check with like Blaziken and Lando. Um,
Yeah,
so it always just seemed like it always looked like people were massively under prepped for it, which I don't think was true every week. I think part of it is that you cover it well with both your team and your prep, but yeah, I just sometimes it just sat there and got like 2 KOs by doing nothing, and it was like, man. And
yeah,
then
kind of like in my finals game
yeah,
with Joshi,
seriously,
the fake tiers, it lit the fake tiers Dracometer from Latios,
that's
which
wild.
was pretty insane. I wasn't
Yeah.
even max Medef. So it was like it's just a
Yeah.
bulky mon. It sat there for longer than it should have and did really well.
Mhm. Yeah. So I this wasn't on the list of questions, but I want to ask. You talked about Zoroark a little earlier. I'm kind of
Yes.
curious about that mon because it has always felt to me like it would be a relatively high skill cap mon. Like if you play it well, it's gonna perform really well, but if you play it badly, it's gonna feel like absolutely awful. Um,
Yeah.
so like, how did you? And I know you talked about it a little bit already, but like, how did like what were some situations you found it was really good in? Because I feel like it's a relatively underused slash under optimized mon in draft. So like,
Right.
what were some situations you found it to be particularly good in?
Um, it was good when you, like I said earlier, you disguise it as an inner focus mon or like a Queen Majesty mon
Hmm.
because you can't fake it out, and you kind of have to play this around as mind games, or you like what I did. I think it's a good example was with my Flamingo game. Like for my game three, like I changed up my leads a bit, and he didn't expect the Zoroark to still be there because I had it my first two games, and for this time I disguised it as Lando in front of his Mr. Rhyme, so he couldn't have killed it with the ice move, and it ended up kind of faking him out, and you can just like kind of like play your mind games with your opponents. They can't really expect like what mon it can be or it can't be. So
Gotcha.
the surprise factor is what made it a decent mon. I don't think it's a great mon, but its
Yeah, for sure.
coverage and its the ability to catch a opponent by surprise is really it that can
Yeah.
make it win some games. So yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I liked watching you use it. It was fun to see, and I always felt good. All the matches I watched you use it in, it always looked really good. Um,
yep.
yeah. So I guess the next question here is, did you have a matchup during the season that you felt like was harder than the rest? And if so, like how did you go about prepping for it?
Um, I think the hardest match prep for was Mboss.
Okay.
I feel like if you watch that game, the only reason why I won was because he missed like six muddy waters, and I paired him with Stoutland T Wave like five times.
Jeez. Yeah,
um,
that's rough.
the, the reason why I didn't like that matchup was because he had it was just rain and trick room. And the thing with the rain was he had Ludicolo, so he could hit my Suicune. Most rain sweepers can't hit my water type, but Ludicolo made it really tricky. And even though I won 2-0, it was because of the hacks. I
Hmm.
think it would have been a lot harder of a match if I didn't get that lucky. But that was definitely one of my hardest matches to prep for.
Gotcha. Yeah, it does look like Ludicolo hits your kind of your big three of Suicune, Lando, Blaziken pretty
Yeah.
hard, and yeah, for sure. I guess another I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but I'm creating new questions as I think of them. The one mon I'm really interested in looking at the stats here is Haxorus. You only brought it
Mm.
twice, and it went 3-1. What was the deal with that? And I don't mean that like, oh, how come you didn't use it more? But like, but I also am kind of asking how come you didn't use it more because it was what tier two, I
Tier
think.
2 or 3, something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember, but because it's one of those mons. I think it probably performs better in a max format, but it's got really good
Yeah.
coverage, really good offensive stats. What was the situation that you found yourself in with building with Haxorus?
Um, Blaziken kind of just did the job better as a physical fast sweeper.
Okay.
Um, Haxorus, the only time I used Haxorus was when I got the Togepi, so I was allowed to use like Swords Dance Scale Shot, and
Yeah.
that was the reason why I got the free KOs, which is R2. Um, the problem about it is you can miss those scale shots, and
Right.
not super reliable with the moves there. But it's a really strong mon, but I don't know. It was really frail,
Mhm.
and if I wanted to throw a sash on my team, I would rather have it on either Blaziken or Togedemaru.
Yeah, that
If
makes
I was running like
sense.
Lightning Rod, for example.
Mhm.
So that was kind of the reasoning. Even like my I almost brought it to my game versus Joshi for finals, but like I said earlier, Blaziken just outperformed it in every way, so I didn't feel like using it. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah, it that dragon typing, it always feels like can even though it's really, it switches into like fire, water, grass, electric, those kind of things nicely. It's like with how frail Haxorus is, I can totally see because most teams are going to have at least a good fairy, if not a good fairy and a good dragon. So,
yeah.
yeah, I can see that for sure. Um, all right, so another question here. What was your favorite match of your season and why?
Oh, favorite match. Um, Ooh, that's hard. That's hard. Um, hmm. I really liked my game versus Hollow because I
Mm.
got to bring Shedinja before I made the trade, and it ended up going 4-0. So
Jeez.
that was pretty fun. So I was sad. That was the only reason why I didn't trade off to playoffs because I realized it's not a great mod. But in that specific matchup, I was facing a Psychic Terrain team, and guess what? Wall's Psychic types Shedinja.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
and it was also really fun with the Zoroark. I could disguise it as Zoroark, and
Oh
you got to play
gosh.
even more mind games with it as a
Jeez.
Ghost
Oh
and Dark
man.
type. So that was another reason why Zoroark shined. I forgot to mention that. I forgot Atration Ninja. So disguise Zoroark as a Ghost type, and you can't close combat it, or you can't so it's like um, yeah, it was a really fun mon for that one game I brought it.
Yeah,
but
what's really interesting is I just did the interview with Freor who won Frogadier Division earlier. He had the exact same combo of two Mons, and he said the exact same thing about it. Like,
it's really cool.
yeah, so I think that's really interesting that you guys both drafted that. He didn't make a single trade all throughout the season, so he just kept
Wow.
everything. But yeah, braver than I am. But um, oh yeah, and I meant to come back to this and moved on to something else. Your playoffs transaction was dropping Shedinja for Glalie. What were your
Yes.
thoughts there? I know you just kind of talked about how you don't actually think Shedinja's that good, but what was your reasoning there?
Okay, so we talked about earlier how I was struggling versus M-Boss and a rain team.
Hmm.
So Glalie gets freeze dry, and not just M-Boss's team. There's also another rain team in the league, for Ducky. So I thought, well, Glalie good versus both. My chances of fighting them are pretty likely. I'm gonna face either one of them most likely in finals or semis. Pick a Glalie, and freeze dry just hits the rain sweepers, and it was just good
Interesting.
as a scarf mon. You can't fake out it, and ice stab is just really good versus rain. So that
Hmm.
was kind of the thought process.
Yeah, was that tier 5 or 4? I think it was 5,
Tier
right?
five, tier
Okay,
five.
yeah. Yeah, Glalie feels pretty good in tier 5.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the better tier fives there. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
have the best stats ever, but if you throw a scarf on it, it's decent.
Yeah, its move pool is pretty good. I guess then the follow up there is it does show here two games. So did you end up bringing it? I'm trying to remember. You brought it against Ducky, right? Yeah, you did.
Yes. Yeah,
And
the reason
that
why I
was
drafted it.
right. Yeah, and you didn't bring it to finals, I remember. But had M-Boss won semis, you probably would have, huh?
Most likely.
Yeah,
I think
maybe.
it would
Yeah.
have been good versus Deludi. Yeah, I would have brought
Yeah,
it if we did
for sure.
face. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I it's cool to see playoff transactions pan out because I actually picked up Manectric and then never brought it. But
That's funny.
yeah. So okay, I already asked about MVP. So I guess one of my last few questions here. Um, so your finals matchup, you were against Joshi. He had a really
Yes.
really hyper offensive team. Um,
Yes.
and the way he was piloting it was also really hyper offensive. Like he was using Lapras as like a damage piece, which I thought was cool. I really liked seeing the non-max
Oh yeah.
Lapras usage this season. Um, what would like walk me through your prep process for finals? Like obviously you don't have to, you know, talk about all your calcs and stuff, but like
Um,
how did you look at the matchup and your game plan?
how I looked into it. Well, I looked into my compared our old teams. My week two, and we
Mhm.
faced week two in regulars. So I looked at our old teams, and I kind of looked at what did well. What I remember what did well was the Lando and Suicune. Um, so I ran the exact same Lando and Squeakin sets because they did really well, especially the icy wind spam. He even mentioned our DM saying that he won't fall for it again. And I thought of not doing it, but it just did so well. And I'm like, okay, how are you going to counter it besides maybe a trick room? But that's really risky too. So I kept it,
Hmm.
and it hit the calcs I needed to. I could live any special hit basically, and I gave the speed to outspeed Cinderace at -1 because Icy Wind.
Hmm.
So that was cool. But one thing I added was the Blaziken, which I'm surprised I didn't use last time because Blaziken kind of ate through his team. So I had that as a fast instead of the Haxorus. I had a Haxorus last time and didn't do
Okay.
anything. The Blaziken just allowed me to outspeed the Cinderace at +1, of course, and kill the Whimsicott. It was a good fire type, so had that. Um, what else about the question you were asking again?
I was just asking about, how did you go about prepping your team and your game
Right.
plan? Like, what was your general game plan, or what was like, did something stand out right away as a really good, uh, a really good combo or a really good game plan to use?
Well, the Togedemaru Suicune, like in the finals game, like I did, I led
Mm,
both times in our game. That looked really good because he couldn't stop the fake out because he didn't bring Hitmonchan. That was something I was really worried about in prep, actually. When I was prepping with Hippo, shout out to him, helping it the day before his wedding, which
oh
is pretty
man,
funny. Yeah. So,
legend.
yeah, we did that. And the tricky lead was like Gengar plus Hitmonchan. And like, that's something I was kind of scared about, which really happy didn't come because it just made it was just kind of hard to kill the Hitmonchan. And I was expecting like an AB set or something, which would have been kind of annoying.
Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, the stuff I had was pretty standard. Last time I had SAS Test Arena, but I made it wide lens because I had the Sash and Blaziken. Wide lens just let me with the speed control I had, I wasn't worried about dying. So like Icy Wind also helped me outspeed things, and
Hmm.
I could land my triple axles to kill the Whimsicott and Latios. Send Headbutt was mostly for Gengar and Hitmonchan, and Power Up did the most damage to Lapras.
Gotcha.
So all pretty good stuff. The only weird mon here was Stoutland, which was kind of a last minute piece. It was either going to be that or Haxorus, and I thought Stoutland was decent because of Intimidate for the Cinderace, and what I had, which I didn't use, was Helping Hand. Um, Helping Hand allowed, if I remember correctly, it allowed like Blaziken to like one shot Hitmonchan with like close combat,
Oh, nice.
or almost kill Latios with Shadow Claw. So it was decent. It didn't come, but I think it was a cool support tech that could have come. So yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm always interested to hear, especially from players that are, have multiple league wins under their belt and are really consistent like you are. It's like I always like to hear about rematch, mentality around rematches in seasons, because
Oh yeah.
it's always to me it's always a really awkward thing to deal with, especially with whatever personally my luck is always I play the same person like 2 weeks later in playoffs. That's always how it goes for me. But um
Yeah.
and I know you kind of touched on how you looked at that. You picked two sets and kept them the same, and then kind of shifted things around them a little bit. And I think that's
Yep.
really cool because I feel like it's so easy to get into the mind games of like, oh, this worked last time, but now they're gonna bring this to deal with it, and so I shouldn't bring this. And I think it's. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on it than that, but um, on how you handle rematches at all, because I mean you make playoffs pretty much every league you play in, so you have you deal with rematches. So do you have any other thoughts on that?
um, for rematches, yeah, I do not like rematches. Like, I feel like the loser has the advantage because,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
you have the motivation to want to win again, and two, it's just like they know what you have. So, like you said earlier, it's like, do you change your prep? Do you not? And I feel like you keep most of things the same, but I feel like in rematches you have to change some bits. So, like, you can catch the opponent off guard with something that's actually good or some surprise tech. And I feel like, especially with this playoff trades, that came in handy for my semis match because I didn't have that before, so you can catch opponent off guard with that too. So yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I guess I just have one last question, and this is kind of a broad subject. So I'll see what you have to say about it. But
All right.
I I think it's pretty safe to say that you are one of the most consistent players in that I know of personally in draft leagues. Period. Like you have what 5 or 6 league championships now in doubles,
Um,
something like that, right? Like
Something like that. I think I can check the site later, but something like that.
enough that you don't know off the top of your head.
Yeah,
Which,
I guess.
um, and so I guess and again, this is kind of a broad question, but like, is there anything? Because I feel like personally, a lot of the problems people run into, and I don't think anyone ever fully escapes this problem, but I feel like a lot of the problem people run into with draft in general is consistency. Like, you know, um, I know I have gotten more consistent recently, but I was really struggling with consistency for a long time. And it's, like consistency in prep, consistency in play, making sure that, your real life shit doesn't like get in the way and mess things up.
Right.
So like do you have anything that you do in terms of your prep or your play or your flow charting or game plans or whatever uh, that like you do to keep yourself so consistent from week to week, from league to league?
Um, oh, that's a handful. But I
I know
get it.
it's kind of a big question.
Um, okay. Well, in the past, I just did my prep by myself.
Hmm.
I would just kind of solo it. And I don't think that's the best way to do it, but it's always good to know like what to do by yourself if you don't have anyone to help you. Like, mod partners can always be busy and stuff. Um, so what I do is just kind of I run the calcs on like key calcs I think are important. Like you always got to think about speed tiers
Yep.
and the damage calcs and living certain key hits that you think are going to come. I think are the big three for calcs, and then the rest is play. um,
Hmm.
for play, I feel like it is optimal if you have someone that can help you do a few mocks. I think that's perfect. That definitely helps me on certain games, knowing like what your best leads are, because I feel like um, when you're facing an opponent, I feel like the hardest thing is knowing what your leads are,
Hmm. For sure.
because if you have a wrong lead, it's hard to make the better plays
Yeah.
around it. So that's why if you have consistently good leads, you can have consistently good plays. And I do advise having like a mock partner or just have someone to like run like a few games or even look at your team a bit, just so you kind of shoot some ideas with someone. It's always nice. So and there's like a lot of people that can help you with that. I didn't do it for a while, not till fairly recently, but it's been a nice change, and I think it's definitely helped me improve my plays overall in any draft league. So that's something I would recommend.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's lots of different people who have lots of different processes and everything. So obviously,
Yeah.
what works for one person doesn't work for everyone else. But I think that's a huge one. Like me personally, this season of GLDL, I got so much help from Flamingo, and I definitely would not have won the season without it. But I,
Yeah. Well,
yeah, so I think that's a good piece of advice there for sure. Um, well, that being said, I think that's all my questions. Did you have any other closing thoughts or things you wanted to say at all?
um, nah, I think that's it. I think well, I mean, thanks again. GLDO has been a really nice experience. First season and second season have been success, and everyone here is cool. So yeah, I'm excited to play the next one. So I
Yeah,
think
man.
that's really all.
Yeah, I appreciate hearing that. It's nice to get feedback from everyone, but especially, people who are very competitive and take it very seriously in the league. So it's nice to hear that feedback for sure.
Yeah, no problem, man.
But yeah. Well, with that being said, to everyone else, thank you for watching. I will get uh, the interview with the Squirtle champion up probably late this week, early next week. We still don't know who that is until tomorrow night, but Yeah, thanks again to Panda for coming on, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.